Welcome to another edition of the Wolfpacker Show. I'm Matt Carter. I'm joined by my fellow editor of the Wolfpacker.com, Ethan McDowell. And we're here to talk about some football. It's unofficially now football season. But before we do that, let's hit a few housekeeping items. Try to keep this short and simple. This is a great time to be subscribing to the Wolfpacker.com. I'm going to give you a hint. The next week or two will be very exciting in NC State football and recruiting and everything NC State athletics. We will be having it all covered for you. So if there is a time to sign up for the website, now is that time. Lock it in, get yourself signed up. You'll be getting what we humbly submit the best coverage of NC State football during the season that you're going to find. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at the Wolfpacker. Speaking of YouTube, if you want to watch this Wolfpacker show / podcast, check it out on youtube.com and give us a follow while you're at it. You can also get this podcast wherever you may download and upload your episodes. If you do, give us a rating, give us a comment, tell us what you think. That's helpful. And then last but not least, a big shout out to our sponsor, rogueshop.com. That's ROG as in girl, UESHOP, then Peter.com for all your natural cannabis needs. They're safe, they're legal products that can help you with sleep deprivation. Maybe you suffer from anxiety or have some chronic pain issues. These products may help you. Maybe you've tried a bunch of stuff that hasn't helped. Why not try these? It is a husband and wife outfit, small company. Husband's a disabled veteran who started this business. They are online with a real live chat feature with an actual human being on the other end to help you out, guide you for your best selection of what your need may be. They're also on a message board. If you have any comments, you can drop one in and they will come by and answer for you. So with all of that out of the way, buzzing yesterday at ACC Kickoff for NC State. I noted in my news and views, maybe the ACC was saving the best for last because NC State was the last team to go through the car wash, if you will. A lot was said. Dave Dorn was there along with linebacker Peyton Wilson, quarterback Brennan Armstrong, and corner Aiden White. We'll talk about a lot about what was said, but I just want to get general impression, Ethan, after listening to them. Everybody's glass half full this time of the year. Right? This is the time of the year where they're actually somewhat excited to be in front of the media versus week 7 when Dave Dorn is probably dreading Monday when he has to go do his press conference and just wants to get it over. Just your general thoughts of what you saw and heard yesterday at ACC Kickoff from NC State.
This was my second ACC kickoff after joining the Wolfpacker last year, and first I just love the event. It feels like the start of football season. Like you said, there's just a ton of positive energy in the building, so it was very exciting to be back there. And the Wolfpack to me, I don't know if you got the same impression. It just felt loose compared to last year. Last year there was all these incredibly lofty expectations coming in. Devin Leary was the preseason player of the year, and it was widely presumed that that was going to be the year NC State took the lead. Now this year, I think there's obviously less external pressure, but what was made very clear during the press conferences and the breakout interviews we had afterwards is the expectations remain the same. The Wolfpack, they know who they lost. They know who they lost, a ton of all ACC guys who were crucial to this program, but they feel that they are just as talented, just as deep, and just as ready to make a potential run at an ACC championship. And it was really fun to talk to the guys to get an impression of why they believe they're positioned to make that run.
I think I hadn't thought about that, but I think you hit it right on the nail. I mean, loose is a good word. And this isn't a knock on Devin Leary. I'm a big fan of Devin Leary, but I felt like Devin Leary was trying to present a polished presentation I felt like last year, and I feel like Brennan Armstrong's almost like I've been here, done that. There was a different, and I don't loose is a good way to put it. Like I think that's an accurate way to put it. I mean, Brennan Armstrong, when I was listening to him doing his breakout, was very blunt. Yeah, I played like crap last year. I can't. I'm not going to the NFL being Brennan Armstrong of last year, and he was talking about how everybody says, "Can Brennan Armstrong find that Brennan Armstrong in the past?" You're like, well, it didn't go anywhere. It was only a year or two ago. I mean, he was very honest. I thought Peyton Wilson was very honest and was very reflexive of his injuries and his time at NC State. And it's interesting. Dave Dorn was asked a few times about, you know, NC State relative to expectations. How did they perform? Number one, I don't know about you, Ethan. I think he's a little bit maybe miffed is the right word. I don't know if the perception that NC State underachieved last year. I mean, relative to expectations in preseason, 8-5 wasn't what was expected, but relative to starting 4 different quarterbacks, multiple games, 8-5 is very, very good season, and I think that's his point. But he did acknowledge in the breakout that we do maybe the culture of this program is more receptive to being an underdog with a chip on the shoulder. I mean, that might be the way the culture is sort of built at NC State. So I'm curious what your thoughts, because that was an interesting back and forth when he was asked about, do you perform better when the expectations are lower?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think it just lends itself to the blue collar culture he's built at NC State over the past 10 going into season number 11 here. I think that just kind of lends itself to performing better when you're doubted, when there's that chip on your shoulder. And like you can I think, yeah, I mean, shoot, you see teams like Georgia, even they'll manufacture some sort of chip on their shoulder. But it's a little more difficult when you're getting picked to potentially go win the ACC. And this year they're not. They're getting put in the middle of the pack. And I think there is a pretty wide gap from where the team thinks they are in the Murphy Center, like the general feeling around the Murphy Center, and what national media and what some local media believe as well is what the reasonable expectation is for this program this year. And I don't think he would ever necessarily say it, but I think Doran and probably the rest of the staff, they probably love it. They're probably enjoying that.
Yeah.
To being able to point to that in the locker room this year and get the guys fired up for fall camp, because they are fired up. Talking to Brennan and Aiden and Peyton yesterday, especially Peyton, we talked about it for a bit with the linebackers. I feel like they have something to prove. Brennan said the receivers, like they very much feel like they have something to prove after kind of underperforming last season. He said that was one of the things that stood out the moment he got on campus, was that the receivers were just eager to get out there and get to work, which Brennan said, as a someone who's been through it constantly, he said that's all I could ask for. So it's really excited to see that it seems like their mentality is in the right place going into fall camp, and there's just a lot of excitement right now.
What's your guess on where NC State will be rated preseason ACC poll? And if you're willing to submit, where would you have them on your list of preseason? Remember, to our listeners, I know Ethan knows this, no more divisions. And Dave Dorn told me during the media breakout, along with the other medias there, overdue, I think was the word he used, on the scrapping of divisions. Where do you think they fall? I put mine out there last week on subscriber to the Wolfpacker.com can see it. I'll give a little tease. I had NC State top 5. Where do you think they'll fall? Where will you put them in your rankings?
I mean, all the news outlets who have put theirs out recently have them in like I feel like the 5 to like 7 range,
Mm-hmm.
which like I said, I think that's a little low. I'd probably have them 4 with I think they have an argument for 3. If you can't tell, I'm pretty optimistic on this team. But I think right now there's a clear tier 1 right now in the ACC with Clemson and FSU. those are the two favorites in the conference going into the fall. And then you have that second tier of UNC and like Miami's getting a lot of preseason hype. Louisville, I think in part because they have a pretty easy schedule this year, but Louisville as well. Just teams like that who maybe return a lot of guys, the Dukes of the world, and NC State's somewhere in there. And just based on the stability, the potential for the new offense, and you're bringing in an all ACC quarterback to go with, one of the best defenses in the country. I think I would put them I'm going to put them solidly at number 4, right below. Sorry, Wolfpack fans, right below UNC. I think UNC, it's a boom or bust pick for me, just because when you have a top 5 NFL draft pick like Drake May, they're going to win some games just because they have Drake May alone. And I do really like the tools the players they brought in to like supplement them on offense, the receivers they brought in some exciting playmakers. So we'll see what actually happens during the season, but going into the fall, my top 5, I don't know. I'll put like Clemson, FSU, UNC, NC State at 4, and to fill out the top 5, maybe Pitt, because I feel like I doubt Pitt every year, and then they manage to end up competing for the conference championship.
What I noted out, I think Pitt and NC State sort of have similar profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very low. Both of them are low key. Both of them do excellent jobs identifying and developing talent. Both of them tend to favor hardworking, blue-collar approaches to their programs. Yeah, I think Pitt might be a little bit more, I don't know, trash talking is the right word, but they're known for, having an edge. Pat Narduzzi certainly is not afraid to speak his mind from time to time, but I do feel like Pitt and NC State have similar program profiles where doubt them at your own risk, because more times than not, you can count on them being a solid, at least 500 team in the ACC, and probably at least 8 wins every season in the ACC. So I kind of agree with you. Doubt Pitt at your own peril. And I agree with you. North Carolina's the boom or bust. Everybody's going to have Florida State, Clemson 1-2. I get the sense Florida State may end up being the preseason pick. I'm more of the mindset to be the champ. You got to beat the champ, and Clemson's been the champ.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so I have Clemson at the top. And let's not forget Clemson changed offensive coordinators, and that might make a big difference this season for them. So my issue with North Carolina, and the same I had with Duke, was I don't know how much last year's success was attributed to a very weak schedule for both of those teams. And if you look at North Carolina in particular, a slew of close wins. I think at one point they were 6-0 in games decided by 7 points or less against a subpar schedule. I don't know how sustainable and translatable that is when the schedule gets harder going forward, but you're right. Drake May is a potential franchise quarterback. And then Duke with Riley Leonard, same situation. I mean, he's a potential difference maker quarterback, and they return more than UNC. But I think it was David Hell that noted they may have statistically had the easiest schedule of any Power 5 team in the country last year. So this year they open with Clemson. So that flips in a hurry. And I'm interested in Louisville. They seem to be the media darling, and I'm not sure I understand why, but maybe I will get proven wrong on Louisville. So if I had to guess, I'm going to guess that Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Duke, Louisville, and maybe Pitt, Miami could all conceivably be ahead of NC State in the preseason pickings, which would, I think, put NC State like 8. I wasn't doing the math in my head, but
I can't fathom putting Miami ahead of NC State in the preseason.
Happens every year, though. Every year, you know, it's weird though. Miami actually had one of the best ACC records in Dave Doran's tenure. But yet we always associate them with underachieving and failing to live up to expectations. And they've been pretty consistently good. They just haven't been Miami national title winner in that stretch. But I wanted to circle back on a point you touched on. One of the reasons why I think NC State will exceed expectations relative to outside uh, media, if you will. The coordinator factors. You mentioned the new look offense, the creativity on offense, and you're writing a story for the website about how much of a difference that can make. I noted this in one of the pieces I wrote. It almost feels like Dave Dorn thinks he has his best coordinator combination since he's been at NC State, and that's the feeling you get. Like when he talks about it, it almost feels like I got a duo that'll make life very hard each week for opposing team to prepare for us.
They're objectively going to be a hard team to game plan for. We talked about it yesterday. It's you have two really unique system, and like you said, I'm writing a story on it that whoever you talk to at media day, people I've talked to behind the scenes, and just all of that. It it's hard to overemphasize that, like, Anai's offense is very unique. It's not just your typical, like, spread or air raid offense. There's a lot of unique elements that teams are gonna have to spend a lot of time preparing for, and, that's a benefit. That the more time that the opposing team has to, focus on NC State, it's less time it can focus on itself, which is good for NC State as the season kind of progresses. And of course, Coach Gibson's defense also has unique elements and uses linebackers, defensive linemen in unique ways and unique blitz packages that keep teams on their toes. And I mean, history has shown over the past couple of years that it's tough to prepare for it. Many teams can't, which is why he's been so good. So, I agree. I think it's not hard to argue that this is the best coordinator combination you have because you have arguably the best defensive coordinator in the country, and then one of the most um, experienced with offensive coordinators in the country with a unique scheme. With a quarterback he's incredibly familiar with and has established success with. So I think Doran knows that he's not going to have to not necessarily I don't know if hands off is the right word, but he's not going to have to micromanage either side of the ball this year because he has two veteran coordinators who know exactly what they want to do. And it seems like Doran has complete trust in both of them to implement their systems and get things going this fall.
I think he said that Robert and I, the new offensive coordinator, who he noted he's coached against, I think he said 4 times, maybe at 4 different stops. I can't remember exactly. But obviously, he played him twice when he was at Virginia. He played him last year at Syracuse. When he was an assistant coach at Kansas, they played him when I was at Texas Tech. That Robert and I was in the top 10% in most creative. He said, I'm not going to go out there and say he's the most creative offensive coordinator in the country, but he's in the top 10% in creativity. And I think to your point, each week it's unique and it evolved. I think that's what Dave Dorn most appreciates is that Robert and I truly, a lot of people say we're going to mold our offense to fit our personnel, but they stay true to the system, right?
Hmm.
They stay true to the schemes and maybe they're calling play to best fit their best playmakers. And I think Robert and I is one of those exceptions where he actually does. He has schemes, he has systems, don't get me wrong, but it's actually molded and developed around the skill set, starting with the quarterback. Brennan Armstrong said that Robert and I let Brennan Armstrong be Brennan Armstrong and let him play freely, and that's when he's at his best. Um, you could tell from Brennan Armstrong's breakout session with the media that he didn't feel that way last year at Virginia. He felt a little bit more restricted. Had tried to buy in, it just wasn't a good fit. So I think that the number one reason why NC State shouldn't be slept on this year. They're going to be slept on because NC State tends to be slept on, but maybe that might explain that looseness of Dave Dorn and the confidence that he sort of exuded yesterday. He knows he's got a experienced veteran duo that knows how to make life very hard on opposing teams.
And, Matt, it's something we've talked about at length from last year, where maybe the offense last year was kind of designed or structured around letting the defense kind of control games, right? Not doing short drives that are going to result in the defense getting tired out late in games and keeping them ready. But this year, from kind of talking to the folks at media day, they're going to embrace this like high tempo, explosive play offense because I believe it was Aiden White who I talked to who said like, yeah, the defense can handle that. Like we're not worried about being on the field a lot more because especially Aiden was saying they're deeper. Like that might be a surprise to hear after you lose Tanner Ingle, Cyrus Fagan, Derek Pitts all in the secondary, but Aiden was saying they're deeper this year and they're not on Tyler Baker Williams as well. But yeah, Aiden was saying they're going to be deeper this year. Him and Shaheem aren't going to have to play every play of every game. They're going to have a rotation going at corner. And so there was just a lot of confidence that this scheme change is not going to affect the defense all that much.
I think too, there's a lot of confidence that the loss of personnel, they'll miss him. You don't replace Drake Thomas or Isaiah Ford or Tanner. I think Tanner Ingle's sort of the underrated loss on the defense. He meant so much for him at that safety position. There's going to be a drop off on the defense. But I think there's a lot of confidence that this drop off is not going to be near as steep as some people may think, just looking on paper at what the defense might be. And I thought Dave Doran made a sort of hinted at, look, if we get linebacker play from Devon Betty, Caden Fordham, Jalen Scott, if those three guys step up and produce, the defense is going to be really fine. He had a lot of, he's very comfortable with the new safety duo of Devon Boykin and Jakeem Harris. They brought in Robert Kennedy to replace Tyler Baker Williams at nickel. You have one of the best corner duo in the country. In the defensive line depth, both Tony Gibson told us earlier, and now Dave Doran, they feel like it's as good as it's ever been on the defensive line depth. If they stay healthy, I think it really just comes down to the linebackers. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah. Your favorite, I'm going to touch on one other topic here shortly, but I want to get your favorite quote. You wrote down the 10 best quotes from your favorite quote or favorite memory from ACC Kickoff.
I would say it was probably just well, the one that stood out to me might have been about the ticket sales for this year, which shout out to Wolfpack Nation because as of last week they had like around 2,000 tickets left, and that's not for the home opener, that's not for season tickets. No, there are 2,000 total tickets on sale for the rest of the season. That is a historic show of support for Wolfpack Nation. That number kind of surprised me. I would have thought we would have been clearing that mark last year, but it's cool that Wolfpack Nation's really showing out and supporting the team. And then one of the conversations that really stood out, I don't have the exact quote for it, but I was talking to Brennan about Trent Penix. And I asked him, I was like, does he remind you of any of the guys you've played with in the past? And he was like, no, absolutely not. Because he said he is completely unique. He is one of the biggest and fastest guys he has ever played with. And as long as he's healthy, it's clear Brennan has a lot of faith in him and a lot of excitement around him. And that duo could be a special combination this year to watch out for.
My favorite moment was Chip Alexander pointing out to me that it's not Brennan Armstrong, apparently. It's Brennan Armstrong. His name tag at the breakout session for the media had a little bit of a typo in his first name. It's two N's, as in Nancy, in his name, but they only had one. The second N was replaced by an M, and it was Brennan Armstrong. But it was the end of a long week. We can forgive them for one mistake at the end of a. But I would like to see his NC State teammates start calling him Brennan for the rest of the season. I also, by the way, good article from Ethan about he got there early. He beat me to there by about 4 hours, and got to spend some time with the UNC kickoff They led off on Thursday, and I thought there was a very interesting story about how the UNC players were very open about the rivalry with NC State, their feelings about NC State, and their frustrations with the way the last 2 years have gone for them. So that's a fun story to read. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Ethan, but I thought that was a fun read.
Yeah, I feel like UNC has in the past not shied away from the rivalry, but like kind of dismissed it.
Oh yeah,
Um, I think it's a little difficult to do that when you've lost 2 consecutive games to the program, and honestly, the conversations I had with the UNC representatives were, pretty indicative of that. Cedric Gray was straight up. He was he was like, "I haven't won a NC State game as a starter," and he really wants to. That it's not like I don't know, it's not like Michigan putting a beat Georgia period in their practice like they have this offseason, but, it's clear that, they really care about that NC State game, just like NC State really cares about their matchups with UNC. I asked Drake May about it. He was, a lot more diplomatic talking about the rivalry than he was last year when he had some, bulletin board material comments about NC State, but, again, like, I think that loss really stung for them last year after how it ended, especially it being at home for them. And it was really interesting to talk to them, and I appreciate them taking the time to discuss it. And one of the interesting things I talked to Mac Brown about is he just was talking about just how strong football is in North Carolina right now. I mean, we were talking about the top of the ACC earlier, and you have like 4 teams in the ACC right now, all in North Carolina, who could all be in the top half of the conference this year. So it's exciting time. Oh, and yes, 4, right? Yeah,
yeah.
Wake, Duke. Yeah, okay. But it's exciting time to be playing college football in North Carolina, and there's a lot of good rivalries right now, and it's going to be an exciting season.
Should be a very, very exciting season, and already a lot of buzz before the season. Colorado jumping to the Big 12 during the middle of ACC kickoff, and obviously it's going to be a big storyline for a while. But we finally can kind of put that hopefully to the back burner and just enjoy football this fall without worrying about conference futures for a few months. But wouldn't be remiss without just getting your curious thoughts of that move from Colorado to the Big 12, and what are you thinking of? I mean, we only spent one day at ACC kickoff, but obviously we followed from a distance.
Hmm.
We heard Jim Phillips' comments, read Jim Phillips' comments. And what's your thoughts about the ACC and the strength of the conference at the moment?
I mean, I was talking to someone else about this pretty recently. Uh, the ACC is arguably fifth out of the Power Five in terms of just conference prestige going into this year. When you look at it, I mean, the Pac-12 has the potential to actually be really, really good before it kind of starts to um, blow up after this year. But there's a lot of good teams in the conference that year. Of course, the Big Ten and the SEC are always have the potential to be really good. And you have the Big 12, who we'll see how Texas does, but they have the potential to be really solid as well. So you're in a position where everything else is starting to shuffle. And we honestly haven't heard that much buzz about the ACC and what they plan on doing. Are they going to add anyone? Like ESPN's David Hale had a report that they are open to expanding. I don't know what direction you'd go with that. I remember there was buzz last year about the potential Pac-12 ACC merger. Is that something that they try to put
Yeah.
Oregon and Washington try to do like a East and West type deal? I don't know. But we'll see. Um, I think it all hinges on 2 things: keeping Clemson and FSU in the fold. Can't have them bolting for another conference. You kinda need them to stick around, and then, Notre Dame. If the ACC wants to survive as a conference, they probably need to convince Notre Dame to be a member, and for football, I should say. Um, they've made it very clear from Jim Phillips's remarks that they are not interested in doing so. But if the ACC wants to continue as a Power 5 conference, I think that would need to happen, and I don't really see any other alternate routes right now. I'm interested to hear what you think on that, though.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's a game changer, but as you mentioned, Jim Phillips did acknowledge there's been a lot of conversations about it, but Notre Dame's not budging. I think a lot depends on what they get from NBC, how economically viable that television contract may be. Uh, and interestingly, they hired a new director of athletics who happened to be an NBC Sports executive. So I don't think that's coincidence. I think that was purposeful. You know, you're right. I mean, it will be interesting to see. In terms of football this year, one of my biggest pet peeves is the perception the Big Ten gets that I think is in a lot of ways undeserved. It's basically been Ohio State and everybody else in terms of actually producing. And then the Wolverines came around the last couple of years. They've upped their game. But again, when they got into the college football playoffs, they got, their butts whipped by Georgia. And then they suffered one of the biggest upsets in college football playoff history when they got beat by TCU, who then got their butt whipped in historic fashion by Georgia in the title game. And I always feel like the Big Ten gets way too much credit. And I get it, it's the traditions of those programs, the size of the brand of those programs that dominate the media attention and media markets. They generate revenue, they generate clicks, they generate ratings. All of that I understand. But the actual performance on the field of the Big Ten is actually, I would respectfully argue, not better than the ACC over the last few years. I mean, very similar conferences. They had top heavy with one or two teams, and then there's a big drop off. And you see it every bowl season, every NCAA basketball tournament season, where they've been a dud more times than not. They would get record amounts of teams in the NCAA tournament, and none of them would make the Sweet 16, or only like one would make the Sweet 16. So that part kind of one of my pet peeves. But I agree with you. This is a huge season for ACC football to establish credibility. Florida State, are they back? It really helped if you would have someone joining Clemson as a nationally relevant top 5, top 10 team. And then also, there are a lot of games in which the ACC can leave a mark. NC State's one of them. Dave Dorn talked about the lack of ACC success against Notre Dame. It's kind of embarrassing. Notre Dame during the COVID year when they joined the league went undefeated. I think last year Notre Dame went undefeated in ACC games. NC State needs to beat a Notre Dame. Florida State needs to beat an LSU again, like they did last year. You need those outcomes to come to establish the credibility. And long range, we'll just have to wait and see.
I thought it was interesting that Jim Phillips actually pointed that out during his press conference about the importance of getting off to a quick start. I think everything Phillips says in that address is very purposeful. So I think it was interesting to include kind of the, not necessarily a call out, but the mention of, hey, we can't start slow this year.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. A lot of early games, and a lot of games in which the ACC will be underdogs. I think Virginia maybe plays Tennessee. Is that right? Week 1 or so? Somewhere. Yeah. I mean, tall order to expect a majorly rebuilding Tennessee program to upset one of the top 10 teams in the country last year. But, might see how respectable they look. But that'll be a story to kind of watch throughout the fall. In terms of the long-term viability of the ACC, it's tough. I will say one thing. I don't think the Big 12 is catching the SEC or Big 10. And so I wonder why, and there's no talk of the Big 12 looking at ACC teams for expansion, because I think the ACC teams are not looking to the Big 12 as a home. So it's still really going to be driven by SEC and Big Ten expansion desires. And for now, at least, their commissioners, especially on the SEC side, are pretty adamant. They're good. We're good right now. We're not looking to add another team. So, and if you're going to take on the grant of rights, you better be sure, as San Diego State found out, you better be sure you have a home before you start making moves. So, we'll see how it plays out. A lot look forward to Friday night, Alpha Wolf Showcase. We're going to be there. It's going to kick off what we think is going to be a very exciting week of football recruiting coverage on the Wolfpacker.com. So sign up for the site and get ready. Buckle up, and let's see how things roll out here over the next week. Hopefully, I'm not overhyping it, but I will.
You're not.
Okay, and then there's going to be a lot happening. So, and then next Wednesday is the first day of preseason camp. I never call it fall camp because it's not fall. I don't know why people call it fall camp. It's August 2nd. That's not fall. It's like literally, this is the hottest weekend of the year coming up this weekend in Raleigh. We have heat index warning. So why would anybody call it fall? Anyway, I'm off my tantrum. But we'll be there on the board providing updates for all of our subscribers of what we're seeing and getting you some premium observation. And of course, all the coverage leading up to that first game, August 31st in Connecticut, 34 days away from the start of the 2023 football season. Reminder, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all at the same handle, the Wolfpacker. You can follow Ethan at Ethan M. McDowell on Twitter. You can also get this podcast wherever you may listen to it. Please rate and give us a comment if you will. You can also follow us on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. I got my cool ACC Kickoff NC State background on my virtual background to celebrate the occasion. And last but not least, please give a look at our sponsor, rogueshop.com, ROGUESHOP.com, for all your natural, legal, safe cannabis needs. It might help you out with some sleep deprivation or anxiety, chronic pain, whatever you may have. These products may be able to help you. So give them a try. Go to their website, and they will be able to guide you to the right product that you may need. So for Ethan McDowell, I'm Matt Carter, and this has been the Wolfpacker Show.